There's something that's been bothering me ever since we did the episode of the Ethan and Zach trio, Mental Illness 3, the third part of the mental illness episode. I'm really I kind of got rejected on the show for stating an opinion that I consider to be the truth, and that's fine, except that I hardly ever hear anyone proclaiming my opinion, which I consider to be the truth. And so I'm living in this sort of, it causes a considerable dilemma in me, and I'm trying to resolve it by making another Eke Zako speech or video. It's basically what should be obvious to everyone, which that depression is not an illness so much as a response, like a normal human response to a life situation. They call it an illness, but that's pure bullshit. That's just calling something an illness because it's convenient for you for whatever reason. Like if you're in the medical industry, then it's convenient to call it an illness because then it gives you the authority to treat it, which gives you a job. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason it's convenient to call it an illness is that it gives you this sense of the pity. It's like, oh, poor thing, you're depressed. Poor thing, it's not your fault. And it's this idea of exempting the person who's suffering from depression from fault. And that's getting into more ambiguous territory, because maybe it's their fault, maybe it isn't. And that's how everyone who's depressed actually feels. They feel like maybe it's their fault, maybe it isn't. Nobody who's depressed completely, fully believes the line that is fed to them by the entire mental health industry, which is that depression is this disease that comes at you from the outside that has nothing to do with your life, has nothing to do with you. It's not about you. It's just this disease like Ebola. That's convenient for the mental health industry, and it's also convenient for people with a sort of sympathetic, sort of weak-minded attitude about willingness to place blame on things. If you can say anything's a disease, then you don't have to ask, well, what part of it is my fault and what part isn't? And how do we actually take this situation seriously? Now, the third reason it's convenient is related to what I just said. The second reason is because it makes you look like you're a good person by not blaming the other person for their depression. And it also gives the person who feels depressed a little bit like of leeway. It's like, oh, I'm not condemned before I start the race. I'm allowed to participate in the race. I'm allowed to convince the world that I have a point too. In other words, I'm not going to be just ruled out right from the start. And so it can give them a little boost of self-esteem to realize that they're gonna. It's like sort of in golf you have a handicap. Okay, you have depression, now you have a handicap. So now you can play just like the rest of us, and we're just going to give you this little bit of leeway. And that can help a person feel better about themselves. Naturally, so you can see the incentives for why you would want to call depression a disease and not a natural human response to a life situation. That's all I have to say about. That's just what came to me now. If I have something else to say, you'll see it in another video.